Hi, my name is Nika and welcome back to this little tutorial series thing that I'm making on how I color stuff. So last video we worked on eyes, and so this video is going to be about hair, how I color hair, and maybe some tips on how you should be doing hair, and I'll point out some mistakes that beginners tend to make usually. So if this is something you like, maybe hit like and subscribe, that really makes me happy, and make sure you check out the one on eyes if you are interested in that. And yeah, let's get into the video. Okay, before we get started on the actual thing, I'll just give you a couple of tips with some examples. So we have whoever this is and Keanu Reeves. So the three things to note while you're drawing hair is the shape, the flow, and the volume. So these three things are what you want to keep in mind when you are drawing hair. So of course we're not going to be drawing like every strand of hair. In anime style, we draw locks of hair. So if you look at my character right here, you can see there's a couple of locks of hair just floating around, and that's how you want to draw hair. It looks better than drawing every single strand. That just looks wrong. So this is the approach we're taking to it. So when drawing these locks, you want to keep in mind the shape. So if you look at this over here, you can simplify it to something like this, and over here there's another shape, over here. So you can basically break any hair down into simple shapes, is what I'm saying. Even over here, you can do this like this, and over here another one, so like this. So you can basically break down any complex hair into a couple of shapes, and that makes it a lot easier to draw than if you were to like make a single block and then try to draw every single strand. Don't do that. This is how you should be doing. So that's the shape, and the next thing I mentioned is the flow. So the flow is basically like you have to keep a direction when drawing the hair. So for instance, the hair here is going like this, over here, and then again like this. This is basically how wavy hair works. There's a wave shape going on, and if you go over here, it just goes like this and this, this. You can feel how it's generally in this direction, and this is, you can feel how it's a flowy hair. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind, the flow of the hair. And next thing is volume. So hair, it doesn't exactly stick to your head. So say this is how big his head is. You can see the hair is until over here, right? You can see this is how big her head is maybe, and then the hair goes until here. That's because there's a lot of air between like the space between the hairs. So if you don't represent that, it looks like your character who you were drawing just took a bath and just came out of the shower. Hair doesn't stick to your head unless it's like wet. So usually you want your hair to be voluminous, not very close sticking to the head. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So those are the three things you want to keep in mind while drawing the hair. Always have a shape, it has to have a certain flow, and it has to have volume. So with that kept in mind, let's go over here. So this is the character I was working on the eye tutorial too. She has her hair in a ponytail. So the overall flow goes like this, and then like this. So that's the flow, it just flows downwards. Suppose if it was someone like Tatsumaki from One Punch Man, her hair would go like this in all directions, right? And maybe if it was like Naruto, it would go upwards. That's his hair. And then I guess there's a bit of down over here too, but it's generally spiked upwards. And for a character like Goku, it's all spiked upwards. So you have to keep the flow in mind and draw everything according to that flow, or it doesn't look very consistent. Like if some of the hair is going like this way, then some like this, and then other ones like this. It just feels very messy. So you always want to have a consistent flow when you're drawing the hair. The second thing is, of course, the volume. And you can see how instead by like not drawing just 2 strands and by adding a lot of like extra depth and here, it feels more voluminous, you know, a thicker. So, and then over here I added this thing. It basically shows like this hair is on top of this layer. So again, it adds volume to it. And then this whole ponytail, you can see there's these curves and stuff, and it gives it a 3D-ish feel. It shows its dimensions, again adding the volume I speak of. So, and then of course there's the shape. So if you just Google a picture of a ponytail, of course it won't exactly look like this, but you can see how I divided this head into like shapes. This is one shape, this is another shape, and there's this whole shape, right? So by marking out the important shapes and then adding slow details, you can easily make really nice hair. So I'll just draw something over here on the side with a nice brush. So first I'll make this shape, right? This is the shape I want. And then I add and this is the flow, it goes like this. And then I add more and more details to it to just make it look more voluminous. So, and then yeah, so when you add like a behind part to it, it has more dimension. So, and now you have like an easy lock of hair. And that's basically how I break down hair. And I hope you will try and experiment with these 3 important things to find your own way of drawing hair. So now let's start with the coloring part of this. So this is similar to how I color the eyes. It's mostly adding shadows, adding lightness, adding shadows, adding lightness. So first you go to the layer with your base color. It's always important to make sure you color it very nice because there's a lot of tapering ends over here, and you want to make sure all of these are colored in. Sometimes a bucket tool kind of betrays you. So yeah. Also, another thing is that hair usually tapers, right? Like this always would taper, right? As you can see, this is not exactly very tapered, but usually it goes from a larger radius to a smaller radius. But it can also go the opposite way. It can go like from this to this, but in the end it does taper over here. So yeah. Anyway, so make a new layer on top of your base color, clip it, and pick this same color, and just by following color theory, pick the darker shade, the first darker shade. So what I like to do is make a gradient first. So like this. So depending on the sections of hair, I can make like multiple gradients. So here it's sectioned into this part and the ponytail. So I'll apply 2 separate gradients in both of those places, not merging those 2 gradients. So yeah, 2 gradients now, right? So we want it to be like the light falls from the top, right? Because she's outside, there's a sun outside, sun is casting light onto her from the above. So that's why the gradient is this way, right? Suppose I was drawing the light source over here, then maybe it would be inverted. So once you add this gradient, what you want to do is take a soft hardish brush, and then, oh dear, what did I do? Yeah, okay. So take a soft hardish brush, and then you're going to color some things, I guess. You're going to make it look like hair, right? You want to shade this. you want to shade it like this. You color in a bit like this, and then pick the opposite color, as in like the base color, and then go back on this. You color in, color over it, color in, color over it, and just you want to have a little knowledge of like how shadows work for this. It's something I can't really explain in simple words. So I think, in my opinion, it would go like this, right? It's a lot of this is subjective, of course, so it doesn't like have to be like this. You don't have to follow all the rules. You can break a few rules, but like it just needs to work, you know? So I'm just coloring over it, coloring over it. It's basically what I'm doing. And keep doing. So you can already see how it looks like strands of hair. Okay. And over here too. Here I like to use the lighter color to add a bit of like strand shading to it. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling. It's a bit hard to explain, of course, but I hope you can follow what I'm doing. I'm just adding a light to where I think it's appropriate, and adding shades to where I think it's appropriate, right? Sometimes it doesn't need to make sense. It is, of course, your style. Okay, so we've added like our first layer of shading. Again, it's basically just defining the strands, right? So now if you zoom in and see, you can like see like the different hair segments, I guess. Like you can see how the strands have been like defined. This is one of the reasons I like doing very detailed line art, so that it's easier for me to do this part of the shading. So once you did this, right, you can now add a darker shade. So if you're not blurring or like airbrushing anything else right now, so something I see a lot of beginners do is you just airbrush all over it, right? And then you add this, and then you blur the absolute hell out of it. Don't do that. Don't, right? I mean, if your style is such that it works with it, it's okay, but if you're like doing this kind of anime style, don't do it, right? You always have to like paint it over and over instead of like using an airbrush. So yeah, don't do that. I don't recommend it at all. Anyway, so now that we have done one layer of it, now we will pick a darker color on the same layer, actually. Another darker color, and then I'll just take a higher opacity brush, and then again you do the same exact thing, right? You go over everything, and define the strands. So for this, I like using a slightly more blending brush. But the first step, I didn't use something that blends a lot. But for this one, I'm using something that blends more, so that we can blend in the second shade with the first shade quite a bit. As you can see over here, I'm like adding a little bit of a gradient by like blending the two colors. So like alternate between your first color and second color. The same thing, paint and then paint over it, paint and then paint over it, like paint, paint over it, paint, paint over it. Yeah, so rinse and repeat the same thing. Okay, so we've done the second layer now, and surprise, we have to do a third layer of shading. But this one's not as intense as the other two. We're only going to be shading the the areas that's supposed to be very dark. So as in over here, because it's where this head is covering this part, so of course it's going to be darker. So parts like that, you're going to be shading now. Alright, so we've done 3 layers so far. I think it looks fine. Yeah. So now is when we are going to do the unga bunga stuff, as I like to put it. So first thing first, we will be picking this middle tone, making a new layer, clip it, set to multiply, and then you're going to redo that gradient you did earlier. So like this. So now it's pretty dark, we don't want that. Lower the lightness quite a bit, saturate it quite a bit, so it looks more like a saturation filter than like a darkening filter. Then again, lower the opacity as much as you want, it doesn't matter. Make a new layer, clip it again, set it to overlay, take this color on top, as in like the base color, and then in the opposite direction of the light gradient, you're going to add a lot of overlay. I am doing this with an airbrush. You should also be doing that with an airbrush. Then we have lightened it a lot. Started here, reached here. This is more of the color that hair is, so we are going in the right direction. Again, new layer. This time we can set it to add glow. Take this color, make it shifted towards the lighter shade, and again, same thing you did, but make it very light. I mean like 2% opacity, if you will. It's still very impactful, right? So now it's just like that. You keep going, you add another multiply, add another add glow, add another multiply, add another add glow. Alright, lower the opacity again. Okay, so another layer, another overlay. It's a bit harder to do very light colors, since there's a limit to how much you can like play with colors when it's very light and desaturated. Right, now let's add the nice shinies. So color from here, and then slowly draw. This is just drawing lines and erasing them, like nothing else, right? So you're drawing lines, erase them. Draw lines, erase them. Draw lines, erase them. Alright, so we have the glowy over here. Make sure it's in like a line of sorts, like doesn't look out of place, right? Maybe lower the opacity a little bit so it doesn't look very odd. Add some light over here at the top too, but make this like much smaller. So now we have the lighting on top of it. So we're gonna make another new layer, clip, set to multiply. Take this color over here, like the first dark tone. And then underneath the light you just added, paint it and then erase it, right? Of course, a very important thing is the brush sizes. You want to constantly vary the size of the stroke you're using. Really helps. And on top too. Right, now lower the opacity in this for the glow too. And this is a light color, even the smallest glows are very, very visible. Right, this is like 20 opacity and it's still like very bright, right? So again, make a new layer. This time maybe overlay. Right. Okay. Now, a fancy thing you can do is this thing called gradient map. I'm sorry, Paint Tool side users, this doesn't exist for you, but this is where you can use the feature pin light. Anyway, you can like use different gradients to create different effects. So right now I have a couple of them I got from Clip Studio Assets. So I'm just gonna go which one fits this the best. So right now it's on applied to everything, but we don't want it on everything. So we'll just clip it to the hair. You can clip that layer. Make sure you lower the opacity a lot. Maybe not this. It is desaturating as I wanted to, but not the best. Too warm. This is kind of nice, yeah. So it gives it a very nice warm look now. Again, you can like play with the opacity until it's the color you want it to. This whole piece will have a very warm tone, so I am looking for something that's warmer. So I think I'll keep this now. Right, I'll just keep this. Now again, so I'll show you how pin light works over here. So you clip again a new layer, set it to pin light. Anyways, this is something I like to do on some drawings, but not all. I like to use a yellow color actually and go over the top of it. Doesn't work for all colors and colors, you know. Not everything works with everyone, but it sometimes adds a very nice effect. 5, yeah, that's fine. Another new layer, set it to multiply again. And this time we are going to just whisk over the sides to give it a basic kind of look, like a spherical look. Alright, just add shading all over the places. Lower the opacity. Increase the saturation maybe. Okay. Before, after. So we're getting closer and closer to finishing this. Again, another new layer. Add glow. Light color. And add just some little bit of lines over here. Like you add those sparkles. Right. And then lower opacity. And that's about it. Now, like we did in the eyes one, we are going to add a purpley shade to the very dark parts. Not much, of course. Again, this works better on darker colors than the lighter ones. And let's also add a bit of red orange to it. Let's go over here. See this shading block thing? I'm just gonna add a bit of red to those bits. Here. Right. Lower the opacity, lower it over here. And yeah, we're done shading over here. I could use a bit more work over here. I'll do it after I'm done recording. But yeah. Again, it's all about just trial and error. So again, we're going to color the line art of this. I like to use a lighter color over here and darker color in the darker places instead of one color throughout. So we have done all that. Oh, I completely forgot. Something I do is go to this new layer, normal, and then use the skin color, like the second darker color of the skin, and then airbrush that too, as if like bouncing the light from the skin, maybe. And then of course lower opacity, right? Anyways, back to the top. Now what I do is add some stray strands, and like just paint over it, I guess. So like, though I guess for this character, she's a very princessy kind of character, so it's not very appropriate for her to like have very stray bangs, but I'll just try and add a couple of them on her ponytail at least. Like go with the flow and all. Again, these bangs should also, like these stray bangs, they should also go with the flow of the picture. Alright, that's enough, I think. Again, just gonna fix the hair colors a bit. Alright, and yeah, that is how I do hair. So I hope this was kind of helpful. I also like to adjust the color with tone curve. Very useful feature. You can make stuff darker or lighter. So, and of course the hue, saturation, lightness thing. I like to use these color adjustment layers. You find this on Photoshop too. They're more useful than just the normal color adjustment because you can do it over a wide range of layers without actually merging them. So it's very, very nice. Okay. And yeah, that is how I color hair. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video, which would be about skin. I hope you found this helpful, and yeah, thank you. I'll try and add a line art that you can practice on in the last bit, because this is something I can't share publicly yet, so yeah. And yeah, hit like if you enjoyed.